star across my sky, having trouble sleeping, and I do it all again. The sun that I'm feeling, I've been to the moon, don't tempt me.
The time, I guess, just after Jason passed away, I just think of sort of silence. Yeah, I just think of sort of stillness and silence. It was sort of, very much a sort of end of, at that time I thought it was like the end of my life, and now I can see it was the end of this phase of my life, but at the time it just felt like sort of everything had stopped. Well, almost all of the record I produced with Steve Brown, who produced The Sea with me as well, so, but we're really old friends. We've known each other a really long time, and we got married 3 years ago.
Can you imagine the woman whose voice soothed millions worldwide, hiding a grief so profound it almost destroyed her forever?
Yeah, it really is, yeah. It's nice to be talking to you guys, and brilliant to be out talking about my album. I'm a writer and a producer, so I've been working all this time in music, but it's really nice to be back in front of the microphone and playing to crowds.
Corinne Bailey Rae vanished from music for 6 years, and what happened during that darkness will leave you stunned.
Stop where you are.
But here's what nobody talks about. There are 2 secrets about her journey that will completely change how you see her. The first involves a mysterious building in Chicago that became her obsession. And the second? Well, stick around, because what she revealed about making her career-defining album will shock you to your core.
How everything you've ever felt has been felt before, and how musicians make songs out of feelings. And so I really wanted that to be in the book. That's been a really important thing for me in my life.
February 26, 1979, Corinne Jacqueline Bailey was born in Leeds, West Yorkshire, England, to a father from St. Kitts and Nevis and an English mother named Linda. She entered a working-class household where money was tight, but dignity was everything. As the eldest of 3 daughters, her sisters Candace and actress Rhea Bailey would follow. Corinne grew up watching her mother Linda clean houses and work multiple jobs. But Linda wasn't just any cleaner.
I was really aware of my mum's style, and my mum is very stylish. I was thinking of this on the train today, that she's always been very stylish and chic. When we grew up, she was actually cleaning houses. It was before she worked. She cleaned houses, then she cleaned at our school, our primary school.
She was the woman who rode her bicycle to work in heels. She made hats out of cornflake boxes for weddings and made them look like designer pieces. Every time they went into downtown Leeds, Linda made sure the girls wore their Sunday best. Cream smoothed into their legs, long socks pulled up, their good school shoes polished and ready.
I always remember clothes as being a kind of way of moving from one group to another. So I knew the power of clothes.
Corinne learned early that clothes were armor. That presentation was protection. At Allerton High School in North Leeds, Corinne studied classical violin. She sang in church, first at a Plymouth Brethren congregation, then at a Baptist church where the youth leader coached rock bands. She recorded 2 albums with the worship ministry youth group under the name Revive. Stevie Wonder's Songs in the Key of Life became the soundtrack to her childhood, those melodies seeping into her bones while sunlight streamed through wide windows. But here's what nobody expected. Corinne hated her own voice. She thought it was wrong, too textured, too rough. At school, all the girls in choir had bright, polished, musical theater voices that rang like crystal bells. Corinne's voice had gravel and warmth that didn't fit the mold, until she was 12 and heard 2 people who changed everything: Kurt Cobain and Billie Holiday. Kurt Cobain's scream came through her speakers like permission, raw, conversational, real. Then Billie Holiday's worn voice told stories without needing perfect pitch. That's when Corinne realized something that would change her entire life. Different wasn't wrong. Different was her superpower.
Walk around the world and different people come up to me and say what different songs have meant to them. Oh, this song got me through this, I experienced this. Or
she had this texture in her voice that she'd been ashamed of her whole life. Every time she opened her mouth to sing, she heard what she thought were flaws. But something was about to shift her entire perspective.
I think I'd always grown up in different styles in music. I'd come from an indie band, I'd danced ballet when I was a kid, I played violin in an orchestra when I was younger than that.
At 15, she grabbed her sister's classical guitar and started teaching herself.
My sister used to play classical guitar at school, and one day I just took her guitar and started to practice, watch TV and see what the other artists were doing.
3 chords. That's all indie rock needed. She formed a band called Helen, inspired by Veruca Salt and L7. Helen played gigs around Leeds constantly, building a small but devoted following. In 1998, Roadrunner Records, yes, the Slipknot label, approached them about a deal. This was it, the dream within reach. Except the bassist got pregnant. The deal evaporated like smoke. The band disbanded. Corinne was absolutely gutted.
Just like a star across my sky.
So she pivoted entirely, stopped screaming, started singing soul. Between 1998 and 2001, Corinne worked as a cloakroom attendant at her local jazz and soul club in Leeds. That's where she met Jason Ray, a Scottish saxophonist who played with the Haggis Horns. In 2001, at 22, she married him and took his last name. Bailey became Bailey Ray. She started writing intimate confessions instead of indie rock screams. In 2003, she collaborated with the New Master Sounds on Your Love Is Mine. In 2004, Craig David's mentor, Mark Hill, approached her. Their collaboration, Young and Foolish, was released in April 2005. Major labels started paying attention. November 2005, Corinne released Like a Star, a song she'd written years earlier in Helen.
All these little things, they have a real effect in the world. So yeah, in that song, there's a lot of blind rage in that song.
Radio stations couldn't stop playing it. The song sold more than 327,000 downloads in the US. Then February 2006 happened.
Girl, put your records on. Tell me your favorite song.
Her self-titled debut album, Corinne Bailey Ray, debuted at #1 in the UK. She became the 4th female British act in history to have her first album debut at #1. The album sold 1.9 million copies in America and over 4 million worldwide. Put Your Records On exploded everywhere. Hit #2 in the UK, sold more than 945,000 downloads in the US. It became a summer anthem, a lifestyle, a philosophy about embracing your natural self. She was 26 years old. The entire world wanted a piece of Corinne Bailey Ray.
When I played at the Jazz Festival earlier this year, I just felt really at home. It's amazing to be in Korea where jazz is really supported and enjoyed by lots of young people.
In 2006, she performed on Saturday Night Live in Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip. She did a live session at Abbey Road Studios. Her songs appeared in soundtracks for Grey's Anatomy, Criminal Minds, 27 Dresses, and Venus, which featured 6 of her songs. The album went double platinum. In September 2006, she won 2 MOBO Awards, Best UK Newcomer and Best UK Female. Then came the 2007 Grammy Awards, 3 nominations, Record of the Year and Song of the Year for Put Your Records On, plus Best New Artist. She performed Like a Star and joined John Legend and John Mayer on stage. She toured constantly, 55 shows with John Legend. Oprah flew her in on private jets. Stevie Wonder introduced her. Prince watched her perform. And through it all, Jason toured with her, playing saxophone. They were young, in love, successful beyond imagination. Everything was perfect. Until March 22, 2008. Jason Ray was found dead in a flat in the Hyde Park area of Leeds. He was 31. The coroner revealed he died from an accidental overdose of methadone and alcohol prescribed to a friend recovering from heroin addiction. Jason, a naive user, didn't understand what he was consuming. The verdict: death by misadventure. Corinne was 29. The media became a pack of wolves. Aggressive, frightening, relentless. She thought her life was over. Not her career, her actual life. She said something later that would chill you to the bone. Something about how close she came to following him.
In terms of thinking about my music, I just thought it felt like the end of my life.
She disappeared completely. For months, she wore Jason's clothes. His vintage Adidas from an Army-Navy store in Aberdeen, his coats, anything that still carried his scent. She dressed for camouflage, wrapping herself in soft cotton and cashmere, because even buttoning a shirt felt like too much effort. She thought she'd never make music again, never meet anyone, never have children. But the grief had to go somewhere. It clawed at her inside, demanding release.
I think that just going through that grief changed my life in so many ways.
January 26, 2010, nearly 2 years after Jason's death, Corinne released The Sea. The album was everything she couldn't say out loud. Every sleepless night, every moment she couldn't breathe, every second she thought about giving up. One song, I Would Like to Call It Beauty, came from a conversation with Jason's brother about spirituality. He described a force holding everything together and said something that would become the heart of her song. The grief had ripped open her chest and widened her emotional spectrum in ways she never imagined possible.
It changed my music because it widened the spectrum of my experience and emotions.
The album was nominated for the 2010 Mercury Prize. She embarked on the Sea Tour, 82 concerts grossing $19 million. She performed Blackbird with Herbie Hancock at the White House for Paul McCartney, appeared on The Tonight Show. In January 2011, she released the Love EP, including Bob Marley's Is This Love? Is This Love won Best R&B Performance at the 54th Grammy Awards. She was healing through music, note by note, lyric by lyric. She reconnected with Steve Brown, a jazz musician and producer who'd worked on The Sea, who'd been a friend for years before friendship transformed into something deeper. In 2013, Corinne married Steve Brown. 300 people attended. This wasn't a quiet affair. She wore a custom gown by James Stewart with guipure lace and a huge silk skirt that made her feel like royalty. Her mother made her veil. Her hairstylist filled her hair with so many fresh flowers that after 12 hours they were wilting on her head, but she didn't care.
I had also just had a baby, so it's like you're creative to the extent where your mind can be off just like inventing. So
in her late 30s and early 40s, she had 2 daughters with Steve. They live in Leeds. She built her own studio in their home, a creative playground filled with a grand piano, drums, guitars, every instrument she needs to dream and create.
you know, I have my own studio. I built a studio in Leeds, and it's got loads of different instruments. It's a real playground for me. It's got a big grand piano.
6 more years passed before another album dropped. May 13th, 2016, The Heart Speaks in Whispers was released. Recorded in Leeds and Los Angeles, it debuted at number 2 on Billboard's R&B chart. NPR named it one of their favorite 30 albums of the year. President Barack Obama put Green Aphrodisiac on his Spotify playlist. NASA selected her for the Destination Jupiter campaign. She performed at Glastonbury and Hyde Park with Stevie Wonder. In 2017, she recorded a haunting cover of Coldplay's The Scientist for 50 Shades Darker.
Nobody said it was easy.
But something was brewing beneath the surface. In 2017, scrolling through Pinterest late at night, she admits she had a serious Pinterest addiction, staying up until 3 a.m. pinning beautiful images while her own bedroom had towels scattered on the floor. She saw a photograph that stopped her cold.
But he had this expression on his face which was so relaxed and confident. And I thought, who is this man who's standing in front of what I thought was a very strange contemporary art?
A black man staring directly at the camera with complete confidence, surrounded by bizarre contemporary art, a pile of bricks, a sculpture of a goat on thin spindles, a Harold's Chicken Shop sign with a chef chasing a chicken with a meat cleaver. The man was Theaster Gates, visual artist, professor, regenerator of Chicago's South Side. She researched him obsessively, discovered he'd saved a Gothic bank from 1923 in Chicago, bought it for $1, raised $4 million to restore it by selling his own artwork. The Stony Island Arts Bank. When she toured in Chicago, Theaster came to her show. Afterwards, she burst out of her dressing room and told him she was obsessed. They agreed to meet at the bank the next morning at 7 a.m. early because he was leaving for President Obama's 50th birthday party. Now here's where the first secret starts to reveal itself. What Corinne walked into that morning would consume the next 7 years of her life and transform her sound completely. She had no idea what Pinterest had just unlocked. She had no idea how many objects inside that building would speak to her, demanding their stories be told.
Yeah, I have a record coming out in September, and it's called Black Rainbows. It's my response to this building in Chicago. It's an old Gothic bank. It was saved from demolition by the visual artist Theaster Gates.
Inside that Gothic cathedral, 26,000 books from the Johnson Publishing Library, every single book submitted to Ebony and Jet magazine since 1942. Books on Ethiopian rock churches, mask dance, autobiographies, recipe books, stories of black pioneers going west in the 1850s, Frankie Knuckles, entire vinyl record collection, thousands of house music records stacked and preserved. And on the top floor, 16,000 problematic objects from America's racist past. mommy jars, lynching postcards, cartoonish imagery, all collected by a Black and Chinese banker named Ed Williams, who went to flea markets and yard sales buying this stuff just to take it out of circulation.
These difficult objects from America's past, these problematic, racist objects that were collected by this Black and Chinese banker called Ed Williams, who would go to flea markets and yard sales and find this stuff, mammy jars, postcards, newspaper articles, photographs, cartoonish images of Black people.
Corinne walked through that building and felt like every object was whispering to her, tugging at her sleeve, demanding attention. A little black doll wrapped carefully in tissue paper in a drawer. Who made you? When? Who held you? A photograph of a 12-year-old Black girl traveling west with a white family. What's your story? What happened to you? Photos from 1950s Ebony magazine showing a Black middle class she never knew existed. The swing coats, the hairstyles, the confidence radiating from every image. And those postcards. Those horrifying postcards of Black children being chased by alligators depicted as criminals, shown in compromising situations, designed by someone, colored by someone, sold in shops, bought by people, delivered by postal workers, including Black postal workers who had to handle these images of violence against their own children. And on the back, mundane messages scrawled in cursive. Dear Aunt Parr, I arrived in Georgia safely. The smell of the peaches through the train was lovely. Kiss the dog for me. The violence on the front was so normal to them they didn't even mention it. They didn't need to. It was just the air they breathed.
And he would collect them just to take them out of circulation. So he would have boxes and boxes of these things in his house. And he ended up giving his collection, which is 16,000 objects, to the Arts Bank so they can, I guess, work out how to show them and how to store them.
Corinne left that building fundamentally changed. She went back. I had a residency there, attended dance parties where people wrote their problems on paper and burned them. For 7 years, the Stony Island Arts Bank became her obsession. Every road led back to it. She'd see exhibitions elsewhere that reminded her of something she'd seen there. She'd discover artists and travel across the world to see their retrospectives, feeling like the Arts Bank had sent her on these pilgrimages. She started writing poems in the middle of the night, songs that pulled themselves out of her dreams, stories yanked from objects that wouldn't let her rest. Now here's the second shocking secret, the one that changes everything you think you know about how this album was made. She told herself this wasn't her next album, called it a side project, told everyone, her husband, her team, her friends, that this wouldn't come out under her name. Why? Because she wanted complete freedom from expectations. She didn't want to think about what fans of Put Your Records On would expect. Didn't want to worry about radio singles or international mega smashes or label executives shaking their heads.
When I was making this record, I said, this is a side project. It's not my own album. It's not going to come out under my name. So I don't have any of those ties. I don't have any of those, like you might say, listeners or, in fashion, the consumers, I don't have to think, would the person who normally wears my Corinne Bailey Raid suit wear this? I could really think, this is what I want to do. I don't have to think about any of that. And so it was only really towards the end of the process, definitely after I'd finished all the recording, that I decided I would have it be my own record and I would claim it as my own thing. And I'm really glad that I did.
She just wanted to respond to the objects with complete honesty. If a photograph demanded a punk song with shredded guitars, she'd write punk. If a sculpture needed an operatic ballad with soaring vocals, she'd write opera. No rules, no boxes, no genre constraint. She worked on it for 7 years, 7 full years of obsession, research, writing, rewriting, recording, scrapping, starting over. September 15th, 2023, Black Rainbows was released. Genre-defying, experimental, raw, punk songs sitting next to operatic ballad, sitting next to psychedelic soul. Every single track is inspired by objects and events at the Stony Island Arts Bank.
Talking really ahead of this project, but yeah, I have a record coming out in September and it's called Black Rainbows. And it's my response to this building in Chicago, which is on Stony Island Arts Bank. It's an old Gothic bank that's 100 years old.
Put It Down came from a dance party where everyone wrote their deepest problems on paper, threw them in a giant pot the Easter had made, and danced while they burned. Corinne participated and felt something lift off her that had been weighing her down for years. New York Transit Queen came from a 1950s beauty pageant photo. She saw it and instantly heard punk guitars. Erasure raged against every racist image she'd seen in that collection. Every child's innocence wiped away.
Put your records on, tell me your favorite
Critics called it her career best work, one of the finest albums of 2023, Mercury Prize nomination. Released independently through 30 Tiger, no major label telling her what to do, when to release it, how to market it. In 2024, she served as artist in residence at NYU's Clive Davis Institute, released the single Silver King, was appointed patron of the Northern School of Contemporary Dance in 2025, March 3, 2026. Corinne released her debut children's picture book, Put Your Records On. Young B discovered the magic of music through her great aunt Portia's vinyl collection, celebrating intergenerational love and emotional expression through song. The book her aunts would have loved to send her when she was young.
B's finding out about vinyl for the first time, and I really love the physicality of, taking out a record, looking at the cover and seeing the art, and then taking it out and putting the needle on the record and listening to the whole song, listening to the whole side and how it fills the air.
October 27th, 2026, the Royal Albert Hall in London. Corinne will perform her entire debut album 20 years after its release. Every song she hasn't performed in nearly 2 decades. Songs she wrote when Jason was alive, songs from a completely different lifetime. A documentary exploring Black rainbows is coming in late spring 2026. She's working on 10 unreleased tracks from those sessions. A live orchestral album from her Roundhouse performance. Tours across the US, Europe, China, the Philippines.
Yes, that's right. We have 3 shows in London, and then we're going on to Europe. And then at the end of the European tour, we now have China and the Philippines. Amazing. Which I'm really looking forward to as well.
As of early 2025, Corinne Bailey Rae's net worth sat at approximately £3.06 million, about $3.80 to $4 million United States dollars. She lives in Leeds with Steve and their 2 daughters, wears Vivian Westwood to school drop-off. It takes long winter walks through nature to stay grounded. Produces her own music in her home studio, playing drums, piano, guitar, bass, every instrument she needs. In 2007, when Lily Allen ran a campaign against her, calling her middle of the road and boring compared to Amy Winehouse, Corinne ignored it. When critics said she wasn't edgy enough, wasn't cool enough, wasn't exciting enough, she kept making exactly what she wanted.
Good start for me in music, but I loved indie, I love the fact that it's really simple. You only need to know 3 chords and you can go off and write, endless amounts of songs, and that's what I did, and I loved the aggression of that music as well.
She lost her first husband tragically, thought her life was over, disappeared into grief, came back with an album that channeled pain into beauty, disappeared again into obsession, came back with something so experimental critics couldn't believe it was the same artist who sang Put Your Records On. From indie rock screamer to soul goddess to widow to experimental artist obsessing over a Chicago building full of Black history, she lived 1,000 lives in one career. She didn't chase the international mega smash, didn't recreate Put Your Records On over and over like the industry begged her to, didn't let tragedy define her or grief consume her, didn't let expectations box her into one sound, one genre, one version of herself. She made exactly what she wanted, and it worked. Corinne Bailey Rae proved that your voice, the one you thought wasn't good enough, the one with all that texture and roughness, is always enough. That grief can transform into art that heals millions. That disappearing isn't the same as giving up. Those side projects can become your best work. That 7 years of obsession can produce your career-defining album. She's currently celebrating 20 years since her debut album dropped. Her children's book teaches a new generation about the power of music and intergenerational love. Her documentary will reveal the full story behind Black rainbows, every object, every obsession, every late night spent researching. Her live shows continue to sell out across the world. Corinne Bailey Rae didn't just survive tragedy and reinvent herself once. She did it twice. She disappeared when everyone expected her to keep churning out hits. She came back on her own terms, making music that mattered to her, not music that fit someone else's expectations. The music industry told her to make another Put Your Records On. She made punk songs about beauty pageants instead. They told her to stay in her lane. She genre hopped between soul, opera, and psychedelic rock like it was nothing. They told her 6 years between albums was too long. She took 7 years and came back with her best work yet. Corinne Bailey Rae is living proof that you don't have to fit anyone's expectations to succeed, that your weirdest obsessions can become your greatest strengths, that the voice you thought was wrong might be exactly what the world needs to hear. The girl from Leeds who wore 2 pairs of tights to hide her skinny legs, who hated her textured voice, who thought she'd never be good enough, became exactly who she was always meant to be.